All right, welcome everybody to the October 24th Lititz Borough Council meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order and turn it over to the mayor.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, to give our invitation is Jeremiah Claren from 717 Church, which is meeting in the Lititz area Mennonite Church. Jeremiah?
Yeah, let's pray. Father, thank you for who you are and what you're doing. And Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve another person. So as we spend time tonight, may our words be encouraging. May they find wisdom that's based in you and hope, not only for ourselves, but others. And so, Father, thank you for what you've given us. And we may use it to encourage others, to build them up, and to point people to hope. Thank you for loving us. In your name, amen.
We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance by one nation, God, and
Thank you, Mayor. First item for us tonight is approval of the September 26th minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Lititz Council meeting minutes dated September 26, 2023.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One presentation this evening. We have an annual MS4 report, and Charity Hain is here to present to us.
Everybody. The mic, I'm sorry. So I'm going to run down a little bit of the agenda that I had provided in the packets. I'm going to gloss over it, but give you the highlights, just because I know that you all have a full evening and I also have slides as well. So the highlights of the latest review annual report. So right now we're in the process of editing our MCM plans for 2024. That's something that we'll review with Elijah and Jordan and Rob in early, I think it's early December or late November. So we'll go over all of the plans that we have for 2024. We did complete public works facility audit and quarry walkthrough, just because we had gotten word that there are EPA audits on the horizon. All of the tier 1 and 2 municipalities, so that's all of York and Lancaster, they're hoping to audit by the end of 2024. So the intent for us is to be in a position where we know we have all of the items if they're ever to come calling at the door. So I worked with Jordan, Elijah, Rob, Public Works to go over our facilities and make sure that we're prepared for that. So we have all the documents that they indicated that they would want to see, either in paper or on our computers, and they're all compiled and ready to go. So that was kind of a big focus for the fall that we all weren't really expecting. The annual report, we submitted our 5th year of our joint annual report in September with Warwick Township. I will go over a little bit of our next draft permit that we submitted to DEP. That's a little bit more in depth and it's a little bit different than what we would have done historically. So I'll review that. Just it'll be in the slides. A summary of IDDE efforts. We had 4 enforcements this year. Mostly it was me working with Jordan to try and figure out what the best solution for those was. He's doing a really good job at troubleshooting them from an internal standpoint. And then if he needs help in the documentation process or anything like that, he usually gives me a phone call or will come out to check it out if it's something bigger. So we did have 4 enforcements this year, which is about on par with what we typically have. A lot of them were just construction related things or very specifically grass clippings. We always do enforce on those. So that's keeping in the same theme as what we had before in previous MS4 years. Highlights of the upcoming permit year. Again, I'll review a little bit of it in the slides of what Jordan and I are working on in terms of investigating the worst MS4 sewer shed that we discussed this, I believe 2 years ago when we talked about our what we had found through all of our outfall testing. So now we're kind of at the point of breaking that apart and trying to figure out where some of those pollutants are coming from within that major catchment. Again, I'll have a graphic that'll help explain it a little bit more. But that's one of the big things we're working on this year. Continued public works training as always, and continuing to involve the public in MS4 related things. Additionally, our Northwest Stormwater Facility grant, we had gotten a grant in 2021, and we actually were able to get it extended twice to work on some sort of capture facility behind the rec center to kind of slow down the stuff that's coming to the park. And we have a grant for design for that. So we're actually now at the point of starting to design that. So that's, we're largely waiting for all of this stuff to shake out with Norfolk Southern and all of that rail bank transfer. So we're at the point where now we can actually start putting something on paper because we know what land is going away and what land is staying. So that's exciting. We had to get many extensions and we were like, okay, well, this is probably the last extension. So we really need to do something. So we're working on that. And then just plan known activities that the public can participate in. Water Week, obviously, we're getting that going every June. Lititz Watershed Alliance meetings, we try and attend those on behalf of the borough as we can. And as always, public activities that the Alliance puts on are always good activities. But I would like to kind of roll through some of the slides. Am I okay if I'll stay by the mic? If you go next slide for me, Rob. So again, what I'm going to talk about with just these slides is very specifically that watershed-based permit draft that I mentioned. We're at the very end of our individual permit cycle, and Mike LaSala and I and the borough and the township, we're working on a watershed-based permit draft, and it's brand new. There aren't any in Pennsylvania, but it's something that DEP claims that they would be open to seeing. So what that means, very basically, is Mike came up with a draft. We all talked about it, and we added our input in terms of how we think that it's going to go. And the draft, for the most part, I'm going to go through a couple of discussion points on what is included in the draft. And then if any of you all want to see the draft, we have, like, the borough has it, obviously, but we can provide any of you with copies of it. It was 18 pages, so I did not print it specifically, but it's kind of a running up the flagpole thing. We will obviously have a meeting with DEP to discuss what was included in that draft and to see if that's something that they're interested in pursuing. And then secondly, I'm going to show you guys what we're looking at in terms of that outfall 119, 120 and breaking that up to investigate it. So the draft basics, what it does encompass is when I say watershed-based permit, it's the Lititz Run watershed. So it's encompassing all of the municipality. And the intent of that is it's the Lititz Run watershed and all the jurisdictional boundaries of any MS4 co-permittees. We have taken out of that Manheim Township because there is a part of Lititz Run that hits Manheim Township weirdly. We removed the Manheim Township from that so that it's just a Warwick Lititz Borough collaboration that we've been doing on our individual permit. It addresses historical baseline conditions within the watershed and kind of builds upon those. So it's a little bit different than our current MS4 permit, where they give you like basic guidelines of what they want you to hit. DEP does, and we have to meet those. Like, we're funneling ourselves into meeting those guidelines. The watershed-based permit kind of outlines conditions that already exist in the Lititz Run watershed based on years of known data. Like, so land studies, the Lititz Run Watershed Alliance have been capturing years and years of data, and we're able to put that data forward and say, hey, this is what's actually happening in the watershed. This is why we want to do this. So that's the difference. Like, the main difference in the permit is that it still maintains the same discharge prohibitions. Like, obviously you can't be discharging chemicals or anything like that. Anything that's in our permit currently or in our stormwater ordinance preventing discharges, that does not change. That stays the same. And it still maintains also some level of MCM based requirements. it doesn't eliminate the need for me coming to tell you about MS4 every year. It doesn't eliminate the need for us to still be working with Public Works. It doesn't eliminate the need for DMP inspections. Like, you're still doing all of your basic NCMs that you would be doing every year. It's just managing of the reductions and the goals that you're to be meeting is a little bit different. Next slide, Rob. And then some of the other things that it does is it allows the permittees to install projects within the whole watershed that address the goals within the permit. So we already kind of do that in our individual permit. Like, we have the ability to put things in Lititz Township or Lititz Borough as our permit aligns, but it gives you the flexibility of not specifically saying like, oh, we're going to do these projects. And again, Mike's really ambitious. It seems very ambitious to me. And I said to him, I'm very excited to see how the discussion shakes out. Because what ultimately the permit does is it gives you almost free flexibility for installing projects. Like, you don't have to list them. Like, you can come to DEP on an individual basis with projects that you want to do. And as long as they support the ultimate goal in your watershed-based permit, in theory, it makes it easier to get permitting because you're not shoehorning yourself into a list of projects that you developed at the beginning of a permit cycle. You're able to fluidly address problems as they come up. So again, it's interesting, and I'm not saying by any means that our draft is what we will end up with. But again, it's an aggressive draft, and I'm interested to see how starting a conversation with DEP progresses this, because again, there are no watershed-based permits in the state. This would be the first one. So it develops a basic format also for watershed crediting and trading, which it's like kind of complicated, but also very simple. What that means is that, so let's say that we build some kind of project on somebody's property and they receive a certain amount of credits. You're able to trade them to somebody that otherwise might need stormwater relief on something different. It makes it easier to move and trade credits through the permit than the current permit does. Right now, you have to have like an agreement and work through the trading process that way. The permit kind of allows like an umbrella to be able to do that a little bit easier. Again, interested to see how DEP kind of sees how that is going to work. Again, it's going to involve a lot of meetings. I'm interested to see how it shakes out. And like I said before, the permit draft removes some of those prohibitive metrics that are generally applied for all permittees. Like I mentioned, we all know that we have a load reduction to meet. That's a certain number. And that's what we're chipping away at with our projects. This, again, somehow this draft permit eliminates all of those necessary pound-based metrics. The draft is very fluid. My comments were, how is this going to be accepted? I'm interested to see how this is accepted. But again, it's keeping those known criteria that we have within our watershed. So like, we know that there are certain nitrate levels that we have in our water, there are certain levels of certain things that we have in our water, and achievable metrics that we're hoping to get. And ultimately, the projects would be to support those metrics as opposed to like a default DEP pound metric or whatever metric they come up with in the next cycle. It's very specifically tailored to this watershed. So again, those are the only real metrics that are put within that draft permit are specific to current water quality in the Lititz Run. Again, this is from 20 years of data of this is what the watershed is. Because again, there are metrics that DEP is asking blanketly people in the state of PA, all municipalities to meet that are just not possible to meet based on their watershed. So it's a different approach, but again, I'm interested to see how it shakes out. And again, it applies, like I said, it applies a watershed specific approach to goals, as opposed to like, okay, we're Lititz Borough, we're going to do this. Warwick Township's going to do this, and then we'll just kind of mash it together the permit cycle. This allows more collaboration in terms of watershed-based approach. So again, it's all very preliminary. We submitted it, I think, at the beginning of October, and I haven't heard anything yet in terms of meeting scheduling to go over. Like, they obviously need to review it. they're going to have a lot of questions. We work really in-depthly with folks at DEP and staff at DEP. So again, I'm interested to see what kinds of comments they have, just because it's so new, because it will, if we're able to get a watershed-based permit and reach some sort of conclusion, like, hey, we're both happy with this, you get your permit, it'll be the first one. So it'll be really interesting to see how that sets a precedent for other MS4 municipalities. So there will be more information on the MS4 based watershed permit. So again, there will be more than that. Ken.
Thank you for your work on this. Do you see and some future date collaborating with Warwick Township since they're in the watershed?
Well, right now, that's the way that
Excuse me, Manhattan Township, sorry.
it's really done. The reasoning for it is just because the portion of it is so small. Yeah, so they're really much more focused on like their bigger watersheds, like within their township. But again, it could definitely overlap into collaboration with them. Ultimately, there's nothing that would even really prevent them from working with us, other than that they wouldn't have been named as one of the permittees. Like they will still have their own permit, but again, it doesn't preclude them from being able to work with us in the future. Again, it's just geographically, like when you have such a small amount of area, it seemed cumbersome at this point to wrap them kind of into it if it wasn't, because they were still part of our original individual permit. Like they're still listed, but they committed to a very small portion of it. It was like, okay, like when we do our projects, like this is the credit that you guys would need. And it was almost like we were able to parse them out because there was such a small area. So again, it does not preclude them from being able to work with them in any means, because we're always open to collaboration. So again, does not prevent that at all. So that's, again, the basics of the watershed-based permit. I will quickly wrap into what Jordan and I are working on with the outfall 119-120. So if you want to switch me to the next slide, Rob. If you all remember from a couple of years ago, when I kind of went over all the results of things that happened, the black outline is, y'all can see it, right? I pointed out, but I don't want to get too far from the mic. Thanks, Carrie. So that's the outfall 120-119 that I refer to. It discharges almost right behind Senator Almond's office, right there into the Lititz Run. And as you can see, it encompasses a large part of the borough. Goes all the way from Sutter Village down through the middle part of town, down through Minden Hall. It's huge. So it's arguably our worst MS4 outfall, as you all remember from giving that update before. So one of the ways that Jordan and I figured, okay, how do we break this off and determine, where to start? Like where we start? It's huge. Don't know where any of the pollutants are coming from. We double tested it. We got terrible results both times. So we have to figure out, is it just the sheer volume of water, or is there a portion of it that is contributing more to the pollution values that we saw in our test results? So what we decided to do, we did take a cursory look at the map. If you want to go to the next one for me, Rob. Again, just a very brief picture as well. You can see the blue stars on there. I might have should have picked like a red or something, but you can see there's 7 blue stars on there. And those are kind of the points of confluence where we could shoot off different trunks of our MS4 infrastructure, and where we could kind of couple it down to where, okay, like we can test in this area. So Rob, if you could switch to the next slide, it might actually help. So colors. I apologize too if anybody's colorblind. I did not even almost pass the colorblind member of my family to see if it was able to be seen. But so the intent of what we're going to try and do is there are 3 testing points into the basin. It's the basin behind the main part of Meridian Manor. So kind of more like the treehouse playground. It's the dark green, the yellow, and the orangey color. Those points all go into that basin. So those are easy points to test. They're headwalls into the basin. And we would effectively, once we tested those in a rainstorm, we'd be able to eliminate that whole chunk of area. So each one of those would give us specific results, and we can tell, okay, hey, that's what's contributing. This is what's not contributing. Secondarily, that light, like teal blue area, That encompasses all of Study Village. That alpha is actually, that testing location is one of the inlets that takes, again, a fair amount, all of that teal colored infrastructure. If we were to find results within that testing point, we would have to break that down a little bit more yet. But again, if we were also to find positive testing results there that didn't indicate any high numbers of anything, we would be able to effectively eliminate that entire area from our troubled testing outfall. The same too with the dark blue, that like macaroni and cheese colored orange and that lavender color. Those are each trunks that we can pull from in a rainstorm, and we would effectively be able to eliminate those areas from any issues that we would find. Or we may find that within those areas there are more issues than other. I can completely see it being a situation where we find that 2 or 3 of those areas that we pull from would be trouble areas. Because again, we were high on a number of pollutant markers that were not, that they were really high, like way higher than what we want to see. And this is, again, it's a huge outfall area, and we want to just try and be able to realistically, within that framework of testing, to be able to eliminate areas from that. So you can see too, that does not include that whole bottom part. We thought that a reasonable starting point would be to start at the top and work our way down, because, you know, if we find that there are problem areas at the top, we can keep working our way down. Obviously, like in the middle, towards the end of learning holidays, would probably be another testing point, just to kind of see. And as well, some of the trunks that come down Main Street, we'd be able to see if anything is happening in those areas. But again, we try to not do like many at once. A reasonable amount of outfalls to do in one event is probably 7 or 8. So we figured that this would probably be the easiest thing to bite off, especially the 3 that lead into that basin at Meridian Manor. Those are going to be like super easy to get. The other ones that are inlets, those will involve some assistance from Public Works. Jordan and I have already acknowledged that, like it will involve moving to pull grates off and collect samples down within the piping. So we tried not to have all of them be as high maintenance to get as that one. So again, that's the trajectory with that, as always. David, go ahead.
I have a question. That's why I wrote the exact names. It seems like somebody dumping.
Not necessarily dumping. If you want to, David, I can get you the results, like just as a refresher from what we did a couple of years ago. It was the things that we test for are fecal coliform, total coliform, ammonia, nitrates. There's one other thing that we test for that's phosphorus that was escaping me. So those are the things that we test for from a DEP EPO standard. We also test basic temperature and pH, just so that we have a record of those. But off the top of my head, nitrates, nitrogen, and fecal coliform were the highest. So those are, again, those were red flags, if I recall correctly. And then we were still like within those things that we tested for, again, there were still negative markers that were, the rest of the things that we test for were still high. So, and what we think the reasoning on that is just because it's such a large drainage area that it can be pulling those kinds of things from a much larger area. Because a lot of our other outfall drainage areas aren't nearly as big. So there is a multiplier that we apply to that. Like the bigger the drainage area, the like generally the marker, once we test for them, those increases with how much area there is as far as the drainage area. So this was just by far and away the worst for all of the things in the municipality. And another like layered component to that is the fact it's called 119, 120 because when it discharges into the Lititz Run, there are 2 like pipe heads. There's an old concrete block culvert that just discharges into the creek, but then also a giant 48-inch pipe right beside it. And I had no concept of how fully to test that, so I tested both, and both were terrible. So we're not confident either that the whole other facet of this is going to be figuring out where that pipe splits, because obviously it splits somewhere. And Bill and I have acknowledged that there will likely have to be some kind of dye testing or exercise to try and figure out why that does that, where that does that, whether it's, again, dye testing, televising, like we're going to have to figure out why that splits. Because again, results were very similar coming out of both those pipes. They're right beside each other in the Lititz run. It baffled me when I did the testing. But again, at that point, my job was just to do very basic testing on the outvalves. And then when we decide which one's the worst, which again, it's 119, 120, which is both of those discharge points from, in theory, this outfall area. So again, that's going to be a whole nother layered component to this exercise is, okay, we figure out where, in theory, some of the main concentrations of pollutants are coming from. And then as we get farther down, we're going to have to figure out, okay, is this all coming from one pipe? Does the pipe split? Because again, the results from both pipes were terrible. Like they were both really bad. So ultimately what we did is we had those two results, but averaging them together still made them the worst. So it's an ongoing process, but this outfall right here, 119, 120, this drainage area is the main focus of kind of the next level of testing. The other outfalls, again, as you all remember from a couple of years ago when I presented all the results of what we had tested, there were others that were not great, but this one was by far and away the worst. So we're just starting to climb up the mountain of trying to figure out what's coming from here.
So I think David might have been going this way,
Yeah.
but once we know,
Yes.
this is where where the pollutants are coming from.
Yes.
What are the steps after that? If it's not someone purposefully doing something, how do you
How do we
address?
figure that out?
Yeah,
Next thing is once we figure out what the pollutant is, like, okay, it's high for this in this area. What is that? The next thing I think to do, like, let's say it's fecal coliform, and let's say there is a high concentration somewhere within that particular drainage area, where we have to have a conversation and work with Rob, because there may be an issue with sewer piping that we just don't know about, and that, like, there might be groundwater leaching. We don't know. So that's like something that we would look at in terms of fecal. Nitrates, nitrogen. We would look at, again, it's the borough, so it's challenging, but we would look at leaf debris, grass debris, animal waste. It's, again, I think that the most concerning pollutant for me for sure is the fecal coliform, and I'm at this point stumped as to where and why it's so high. So that to me is the most concerning. But again, I can completely see getting a high nitrogen reading in maybe a more wooded area where we do have leaf breakdown and things like that. And that might just be, okay, like people are dumping leaves really adjacent to where the water would actually go, and maybe it's giving us a high reading in that. So that's when we kind of situationally move through that area and then investigate more as to what could possibly be causing that. Again, without doing all of those specific testing, we don't fully know where is, what is coming from where. But again, it's likely, in my opinion, going to be some sort of, it's just going to be an investigation activity to try and figure out where those things are coming from. So again, it's like everything in a mess where it's a slow burn. Like, it's going to take a while. It's definitely not going to be easy. But again, one of the things, in relation to that watershed-based permit is we've seen very specifically for the Lititz watershed, we have generally high nitrates. So maybe we take a look collectively and it's like, okay, like maybe we eliminate nitrates as being one of the issues, because we do have high nitrates in the Lititz Run simply because of how much ag area drains to our watershed. It's of of groundwater recharge that is just high in nitrates. And it's not new. I mean, if you talk to Rob, you talk to Todd Kaufman before Rob, like it's not new. It's something that's been happening for a long time. So again, the most concerning thing for me again is the fecal coliform. Is just why that is so high. I can't fully comprehend why it's so high, but again, we'll have to go through the exercise, and as we discover what some of those issues are and where they are, I'm hopeful that will kind of pinpoint it for me. My hope is that I don't go through all the testing and I just have high numbers everywhere and I don't have any way to explain it. So again, without fully going through the exercise at this point, like again, we're waiting for a good rain event that happens. Again, you all know the plight that I have to deal with of trying to have rain events happen while the lab is open. There's a very specific hold time on a fecal coliform test, which has proven rather challenging because all of our rain events have happened on Saturdays. So every time that it's rained, if anybody noticed, over an inch, it's been on a Saturday, which has been super challenging because the lab closes at noon on Saturday. So you have to have an hour first flush of having the water go through, and then you have to mobilize in order to test these. Arguably, you need help from Public Works, and arguably, I would have to get the samples to the lab before noon because fecal coliform samples only hold for 8 hours, and their lab doesn't open again until 7 on midday. So again, fingers crossed for an actual 1 inch rain event during the week. We have our bottles all ready to go and we're all ready to do this. So again, more info on this, stay tuned. But does anybody else have any other questions about this? I was glad to answer them.
Any other questions from council? Questions from anyone in the audience? All right, thank you,
Awesome.
Charity.
Yeah, if I look forward to being able to give you more information next year's MS4 update. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we have no ordinances, no resolutions. We have an agreement on the agenda. It's agreement number 557. We need more feedback from DEP and collaboration with Warwick Township before this can be moved forward. So we're just gonna continue that till the November meeting. With that, we're into our council members forum and our subcommittee report on water and wastewater. Ken.
Thank you, Shane, and good evening, everyone. Nate, we're gonna have you just give the Infomark report this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. No violations for the month of September. One thing, and I think I alluded to it last month a little bit, like 3 years ago, we had an issue where even though the in-house testing was saying we were good on phosphorus, the outside lab was getting higher numbers, and it tends to correspond with hot weather and no rain. So, lower flow at the wastewater plant. And there were two or three different, say, best practices that we had found helped limit that impact to the plant. They, for some reason, weren't working this year. So we had to purchase 2 totes of the Delpac 1525. It's a coagulant aid, and it helps in the removal of phosphorus. It allows the phosphorus to get flocculated and settles out into the solids, the waste, a lot easier, and pulls it out of the water itself. So we were able to feed that during the last 2 weeks of the month, and it did bring our average down. And now, as it's cooled down and flow might have gone up just a tad, results are right back to normal. So we were getting more than 2 milligrams per liter. We need to average below 2 for the month. Usual results so are a 0.2, and that's where we're back to. So, but then adding that Delpac helped us bring that result, or the average down. So we were good there. Water plant SCADA, we're getting ever so close. Everything's in there, and he's pretty sure he can remote in to finish the setup of the loss ahead sensors. He's just really trying to fine tune that for us, but
it'll be completed this year. I guarantee it. So. Let's see, the rebate accounts, we were $28,000 under budget for September. And that gets us to 55,828 for the year so far. And last month, we had combustion services come in, do the annual inspection, like complete pull apart and inspect of the thermal boiler for the dryer, the biosolids dryer. And then the plant SCADA alarm, the SCADA alarm, the plant alarm, all that stuff. That's an annual fee that came this past month as well. Let's see. And I think the only other thing I had, and I forgot to put, actually two other things. So we ended the year, for September, we wound up with 2,800, or wait, hold on. 27,045 total pounds of nitrogen were put into the Susquehanna River Basin. So this is for the credits and nitrogen and phosphorus credits. So there were 43,000 credits remaining, so more than half. That gave us about, I think, 10,300 credits that the borough could possibly sell if another authority would need it. We had already been contacted about the phosphorus credits, and we wound up with 1,197 credits, and those have already been, agreed upon sell. But we're just finalizing that for the borough. And then, we were notified about the permit renewal. So they had asked that we'd do a couple more sampling events, just because the samples we had taken, the lab didn't say they were less than 2s. Well, the DEP wanted them to say less than 1s. So we just had to get them resampled and tested again at the lower, at the lower limit. So we're in the act of doing that right now. And that was it.
Thank you, Nate. Any questions from council? Okay, I have no further questions. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, the Infomark September report for the water and wastewater treatment facilities.
Second. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, Shane, may I just have a moment for one other item, please? Nate would like to remain for your expertise. Rob would like to introduce the PFAS information there.
So briefly, in your packets last week, I included a flyer about PFAS. Another name for it is the forever chemical. It's something that is coming on board in 2025 for mandatory testing. Infomark's all prepared. It's in their budget. We're going to be able to do all the testing. I wanted you guys to be aware of that. It's going to be a long process. And quite honestly, we're not quite sure if I'm in the state or the federal level yet what we're actually going to be measuring for and what the thresholds are. So it's going to be a moving target. It's going to start in 2025, and we're also going to give some general information to the public in the December 10th water, sewer, and trash bills about the testing. If you had any specific questions, Nate's probably better to answer those. That's why I'm kind of jumping out of turn here, but happy to help answer any questions.
What do the treatment solutions look like for that, or don't we really know at this point?
Expensive, intense, I think.
Well, no, I don't know. This what you?
No, I did one from.
Oh, okay. So we were. So just to give you one little thing. Okay, so they're looking at 18 parts per trillion, potentially. This is just what are 8 parts per trillion and 14 parts per trillion. 1 part per trillion is a 1 drop of water in 20 swimming pools. So just as to how small they're looking for. Let's see, what we've heard is that potentially granulated activated carbon could possibly, that would absorb potentially. In exchange,
might help. So we already have the N9 units, so that might help us as well. And then reverse osmosis if you really wanted to go wild. Knock on wood, we were picked to be part of, say, just an early sampling EPA trying to figure things out. And I don't want to jinx us, but nothing's been over the limit. Most of it's been non-detect, but we still have 2 quarters of information to get. Now it does start next year, actually. It starts 2025 for water systems feeding less than 350 people. But we will start, it's going to be very similar to the TTHMs and H85, so the disinfection byproducts as to how we're going to sample at least the first year. So it's 1 quarterly sample, but it's a running annual average. So you really won't know until that last quarter how everything goes now, unless you're getting lessons for everything. And then if there would be, if we wind up being above the limit, it would be reported tier 2 violation and it would be reported in the annual CCR. That's really about how they've told us so far. Yeah.
But they're not suggesting you do anything proactively. You're basically just gonna wait.
Yeah, they're trying to find out where everybody is. Yep. And then from there, go from there. Now, I know it's kind of funny, the gentleman who supplies us with the bio-augmentation for at the wastewater plant, he supposedly has something that kind of works, but it's the thought is a lot of the technologies out there just change it. It's still kind of there. It just kind of changes the chemical makeup of it. But does that just mean you can't test for it now and it's still there? A lot of things we have seen is different filtration, and then you have to incinerate it. Well, but does that put it in the atmosphere? So there's a lot of things out there right now, and so they're really just trying to find out what it is. Maybe this area where we don't have to worry about it, but they don't know until we test for it.
But we're running a lot more in 2024 and then
Yeah.
implementation is in 2025.
Well, testing is 2024. 2025, I assume if we have any issues, they'll expect us to start working towards figuring out how to handle it.
Jane, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Nate. Subcommittee report on streets and traffic, Chris.
Thank you, Shane. The first item of business is the Cedar and Lincoln Culvert. So I'm actually going to hand the mic over to Elijah to start that off.
Is it Rob? It's Rob.
Oh, excuse me, Rob. Sorry.
Okay, so I wanted to give council an update on the Lincoln and Cedar Culvert. The reduction is in place. Notification went out via letter and also our website. That was as per our last meeting. This week we also met with the general contractor and the project engineer. We have a soft start date of November 6th of this year to close Lincoln and work on that culvert first. We asked for confirmation of that date by October 31st so that we can get notification out via letter and the website to everyone that the road will be closed. Specifically, I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about the handout I just gave you for funding for this project. I'm proposing to council that we fund this project via the general obligation bond of 2023 that we just settled on in September. Down to the design items that you have in front of you. $7,000 to date. We've received an LSA of $400,000. which essentially means we now have to find funding for $339,868.75. As I said, I'm proposing that we take that money from the general obligation bond. So the next box down breaks down that bond for us. Proceeds were $3.4 million. The two projects, the regional stormwater facility is $226,342. So that line is $2,667,000. Which brings our total subtotal expenses to roughly $2.8 million. The thing to remember here is the regional stormwater facility. That number is, like I said, $226,000. When we went for the bond issuance, we had a project estimate of close to $850,000. So the difference between the estimated price and what we think the regional stormwater is going to be is where we're getting the bulk of those funds to pay for the $339,000. This plan was confirmed by PFM, the vendor who helped us secure the bond, as well as by Snyder. And that is all I have, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Anything to add? Operating fund will be the storm drainage construction fund. That's where the money will come from.
So Rob, when we make the motion for this, we just need to make sure that we indicate that we're utilizing the funds from the general obligation bond.
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions from council? Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir. You might want to.
Carson, 226th Street. This obligation bond was floated. It was supposed to refinance existing debt. So now we're taking on more project costs. Is something being removed? I'm missing something. I thought it was supposed to just refinance debt at a lower price. Is that not incorrect?
No, it was for the runabout line that we're doing for the Norfolk Southern to do the rail trail.
Right.
And as Rob mentioned, the stormwater facility.
Right.
But that's what he noted came in significantly under budget. So there's, a gap of.
So something else was reduced, the price, maybe not in cost, maybe not a project, but the cost was reduced.
Correct.
Okay, so we're not taking on more projects to replace something else.
We're not taking on any more debt.
Okay.
Correct.
No, I understand the debt. I'm saying was something else not going to be done. In lieu of doing this, you're saying there was less cost for existing planned projects.
Exactly.
But it was basically just to refinance that debt and was costing less than something else. Is that?
Debt. So we had not started the projects. We had a loan from a bank for the projects that never got started.
Oh,
But
still
it still
debt.
had to do with, it wasn't debt at that time because we didn't do the projects.
The credit was still debt.
It's not debt. If money was there, we didn't use it. So it wasn't debt. Does that make sense? We never drew the line.
Okay. It was still a line of credit. It was still debt that you had access to. So the interest rate-
So we draw on it.
I understand. So the bills from the interest rate, you should say we had access potentially to this line of credit. You just didn't draw on it. And you were able to reduce the interest cost.
It was projects to finance. Yes.
And that's why I was just asking, is this additional cost? The projects that were not going to be done, the insurance, what he's saying no, but a reduction in the cost or something that was already planned.
Basin.
Okay, yeah, it's more. Yep. Okay.
There was also a feature in the ordinance that council would have the ability to finance other projects that come up.
I'm not asking what that was or was not. I just was asking. So this isn't put out of that debt and we don't have any kind of capital improvement fund. Is that what you're telling us as well? This, so it's that something else because of reduced cost.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. There's
Everybody good? Ken, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the repairs for the East Lincoln and North Cedar culverts. And we utilize the 2023 GO bond funds to finance this project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Second item of business tonight is the pretzel sign replacement. Is there a member of HAC in the audience to speak to this?
So,
I'm sorry, was that a no? If not, Ken, would you mind reading the proposal letter from HAC with the details?
Sure, Chris, just a second, let me pull it up.
Thank you.
Okay, here's the letter, and the application proposed the following. Change the material of the sign to PVC with an overlay in place of painted wood. Second item, change the background color to maroon to match open flag color. Number 3, change the size from 32 inches to 36 inches. Number 4, change to language to historic Lititz founded 1756 on both signs, no other print. Number 5, historic in gold, Lititz in white, founded in 1756 in gold, pretzel and sign outline in cream, star in gold, post in cream, no outlines on the lettering. Change the lopsided pretzel symbol at the bottom to a heart-shaped pretzel. And the final item is retain the star at the top of the sign. Can it be a part of the sign or does it need to be attached somehow? We'll check with the sign maker on that detail, I guess. So that's the application proposal for the sign change.
Thank you very much, Ken. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the recommendation from the Lititz Historic Area Advisory Committee on the changes to the pretzel sign as detailed, presented and as detailed in the memo dated September 20th, with the star at the top to be determined based on the recommendation from the sign maker.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item of business is the application from Josiah Buxton to host his wedding at the Lititz Shirt Factory on June 22nd of 2024 from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. They are requesting a closure of Juniper Lane from Broad Street to Raspberry Lane to accommodate some outdoor seating, chairs, tables and chairs set up, yard games for their guests if the weather permits. And they would also like to have a pretzel truck and the Greco's ice cream truck in the alley for the evening snacks, late night snacks. Are there any questions or comments regarding this application? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application for the Buxton wedding on June 22nd, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next application is from Rich and Wendy Moats to host the annual Laurel Avenue Lights Christmas Light Show from November 25th through December 31st from 5:30 p.m. until 10 p.m. in the evening. This is their annual Christmas light show with music and videos, and they are hosting a light contest and tour to light up Lititz for the holidays. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application for the Laurel Avenue Lights.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. The next application,
Hold on, Chris. Since Rich is here, any new features this year?
No. Want to thank everybody for all their help through the years. This will be the last year of the full show. This the same basic show of two different themes for the kids has been running for 11 years now. And it's time to scale it back. So we're going to be scaling back after this year, but this year is going to be really good. So I'm hoping to make it the best. So again, thank you. I'd like to thank the fire department for putting Santa up every year. That's been great. This will definitely be the last year for that. So thank you.
thank you, Mr. Moats. This has been a wonderful addition to the holiday season in Lititz, and I know it's enjoyed by so many people. The next application is from the Warwick Band Parents Organization to host the Warwick Band's Food Truck Fest, May 19th of 2024 from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. This is their food truck event of about 15 to 18 food trucks in the Lititz Springs Park. It is open to the public, and there will be music in the band shell, and they are requesting that the Lititz Springs Park be closed to vehicle traffic during this event. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application for the Warwick Band's Food Truck Fest 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And the last activity permit is from the Lititz Springs Park Board to host their annual Christmas in the Park event on December 1st from 6:30 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. This is the wonderful community tree lighting and carol sing, and they will have a couple of food trucks in the park this year as well. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application for the Christmas in the Park.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That's all I have this evening, Shane.
Thank you, Chris. Subcommittee report on finances, Ken.
Jane, we have 3 items of business tonight. The first is just to acknowledge a donation in lieu of taxes and thank the Word of Life Mennonite Church for their generosity. Second item is just more of a heads up. The borough was given a donation from the LRCDC to use in our downtown district about a year ago. And right now, the committee that's working on that and the Venture Lititz team have decided to change directions and would like to work on the beautification project of the Wilbur lot. It's an area that needs some attention, and the LRCDC has approved that use of those funds. And what the beautification of the Wilbur lot would look like, it's adding some planters with garden plants. And for the summertime use, there'll be some park benches, and it's between the street and the tree line, right on 501. So there's a bigger plan for that with Venture Lititz, but this would just be a minor step in that direction. So LRCD has given their approval, and we just wanted to let Borough Council know that there's been a change of direction. Okay, and then the final item is just to take a look at our financial statement and bills. In front of you, you'll see that as of now, we're trending with about 99% of the revenue collected, and also just notice that our expenses are trending right now below budget. When this snapshot was taken, we still have 2.5 months to go, so we expect some more expenses to come in with later in the year, but that's where we are, and nothing unusual in the report there at this point. Okay, and I'd like to approve the Lititz Borough financial statement and pay all the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Ken. Subcommittee report on personnel, Andy.
Yes, we have one appointment tonight. This is for the Warwick Regional Recreation Commission. This would be for a 2-year term for the borough at-large member. Got indicated a desire to do this again, so I'd like to motion Scott Haynes for a 2-year term at large. Rec Recreation Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That was all I had.
Thank you, Andy. A subcommittee report on planning and zoning. So let me open that up. All right, the first item is financial security reduction for New Holland Coffee. And this will take it all the way down to zero. There is currently $24,151.60 remaining, and the recommendation is to remove that. Looking for a motion there.
Sure.
Yeah.
It is conditional on the stop sign being installed and getting the striking with the builder.
Okay, so we'll wait for those items and then release that. Okay.
Still want a motion?
Motion with those two caveats. Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve releasing of the funds being held for the New Holland Coffee project contingent upon stop sign being installed and garbage arrangement.
Yeah,
Arranged with their neighbor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is a financial security reduction for the Dunkin' Donuts project. And current escrow account is $50,544.90. The recommendation is $26,255.90, which will leave $26,289 remaining. And it looks like there's a condition on this one as well. But it's recommended that we hold the remaining security associated with the stormwater management line items until the comments in the July 11th as-built comment letter have been addressed.
Like the stormwater management improvements are the only monies being.
That's what's, it's mostly done, but they need to do a few different things with that, which is why that's
So
targeted.
why are we even? What are we approving? Of the-
My recollection was there was an amount which is the 50,000 that Sean said, and was reducing it almost half. It's for the last $26,000 until they complete everything.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we release funds amount just under $26,000. Is correct? But still retain the escrow for the stormwater improvement controls, the Dunkin' Donuts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The last item is a financial security substitution for Warwick Street storage. We have a memo here from Elijah, the council, indicating that the owner of Warwick Street Storage has decided to sell the property to Valley Storage. And the development is not complete and still has outstanding financial security. So Valley Storage is required to provide a matching amount of security for the development. Mr. Sherman, the owner of Warwick Street Storage, has requested his letter of credit with CNN Bank be released. And the motion should indicate that we'll do that as long as Valley Street Storage, the purchaser, provide an appropriate form of financial security to the borough in the amount of $110,910, and the submitted surety agreement is approved by our solicitor. So we just have one person taking the place of another for the financial security.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we release the financial security being held for Todd Sherman contingent upon the purchaser of the property posting equal amount so all the projects are completed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no report by the borough engineer. Report by the mayor and chief of police, Mr. Mayor.
No report this month.
I know you want to get home and see the Phillies. Report by our managing directors, Rob.
I just wanted to update 3 things that weren't included in my report. It doesn't feel like it right now. The boiler repair is done and complete. It's a little chilly in here, but that's finally done. The credit card onboarding with Lititz is going well. They've been super hands-on, very helpful with the process, and we expect to go live in time for the December bills that go out. So everything's looking great there. And lastly, I did with where we had our group meeting for our health insurance. This will be reflected in the budget, but the healthcare costs are only going up 6.8% for next year, which we thought was really good. Like I said, that'll be in the budget for next month. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Rob. Elijah?
Thank you. Just 2 highlights from mine. One is that the merchants organization is requesting changes to the borough sign ordinance, specifically to allow A-frame signs in the downtown. Since so much of this is the historic district, they're taking it to the hack first to get feedback. Assuming the hack is supportive, then we're going to take it to planning commission and begin working on a draft ordinance change. So it's basically been the merchants and Lloyd and I talking, but at this point we feel like it's good to get hack involved. The other thing I wanted to show is the 90% plans for Norfolk Southern is progressing. We're actually going to be planning on having a field meet with Norfolk Southern after Thanksgiving and hopefully be right around 100% at that point. So.
Wow. Getting close.
Any questions?
Thanks, Elijah.
I also means like a sandwich sign, one of those signs that's maybe 2 to 3 feet tall that you sit on the sidewalk that you can write on.
We have no new business, no unfinished business, no other business, which brings us to petitions, correspondence, and questions. So at this time, I'll open it up to anyone in the audience that would like to address council. Just please come up to the microphone, name, address, and take it away.
Yeah, Rich Moats again, and tonight I'm going to the Lititz Park. We don't know who to bring this up to, but the park has a road going through the center of it, which we always call Park Lane. And somewhere within the last year, somehow it's gotten changed, and I don't know how. It's called Joshua Owens. Does anyone know who Joshua Owens is?
Say it's been changed even on like Google Maps or something.
What Google Maps, the Lititz map, everything. It's on the Lititz map too. So we just don't know who this Joshua Owens is. We don't know if it was a prank that somehow got in there and put on there, but and I don't know how to be best to get it changed.
A lot of them use Google Maps as a base, so I would start with Google Maps and see if that there are ways to basically update place names and things like that. It takes a little bit of time.
Okay.
But that's probably where the request would need to come from.
Okay. Start with that. If anyone knows who Joshua Owens is, we'd be happy to know.
Thanks, Rich. Hello.
My name is Susan Woolley. I live at 101 White Tip Lane. I'm a newcomer to Lititz. Love it. I love this town. already, but I just have one small point to bring up. I've had 3 incidences of two faulty incidences of the parking meters not working. The digital parking meters where you put in your card. Twice it hasn't worked. Once I went to the police department and reported that it wasn't working. I finally dug up enough change on the bottom of my car to get around the digital part. A couple of weeks later, at a different location on West Klein Lane, same situation, only this time I was a little peeved. So I just left it. I tried my credit card, then I tried my debit card, and then I said, okay, I'm done. And walked away, got a ticket, went to the police department, said, your meter is faulty, I'm not paying the ticket. She said, fill out this. And that was fine. She said, oh, and by the way, we get a lot of these complaints about our meters. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm just one person that's lived here for a year and it's happened to me twice. And so I'm wondering, maybe it's me, and that's a possibility, except that a third time I went to use the parking meter and it worked fine. So I figured that one out. So I just don't understand quite, it shouldn't be rocket science. Okay, I've used these parking meters in Harrisburg and in Lancaster, no problem. Come to Lititz and I can't figure it out. So, I'll admit it could be me. And so maybe you need like instructions, a sticker. It could be a really easy fix, a sticker on the parking meter that you have to do it this way. Maybe I was doing it wrong. Or maybe the parking meters are defective. You need to get. Was successful. I'll just wrap this up really quick. I was successful in getting my parking ticket rescinded. But the person that gave me the ticket said, next time this happens, give me a call. And I thought, well, okay, is there a number? I didn't think to ask for the number. I thought that was going to be the next thing she was going to say. So anyway, just so you know, just for the record, you might want to look at your parking meters and maybe there'll be other issues. Thank you very much for your time.
Understood. Thank you. Well, yeah, maybe we can do just some random testing on them and see if we have some issues. I still have a giant cup full of change in my truck, so I go for the quarters for whatever reason. So I've not had issues, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. So
Okay.
Susan, where did you move from?
Yeah, most recently.
Welcome to Lititz.
Thank you. Love it.
Just always to. So I have a question about. I'm shooting on that picture. I guess to be, but is there policy about attendance? Council persons, either in person or by Zoom. Both, I guess, in person and by Zoom. Considering the fact that on the website you indicate that the Zoom, there's issues with that. So it's a policy about attendance in person, and there's a policy in attendance about Zoom. And if you should have left that. That's my question.
yeah, there's not, Dave, at this point. We are addressing the Zoom issue or debating if it would be addressed. We have a very large number that would need to be put towards that, so that'll be part of our budget discussion. As far as attendance goes, while I don't disagree that it's good to have everyone in person at these meetings, I would say that, the bulk of the hours spent, time invested as a council member occurs outside of this meeting. So if we have participation, and, specifically, Chris travels or Steve coaches multiple sports teams with his kids, I don't think it's the end of the world.
I'm pushing it in, these people that aren't here on Zoom. Respect on the items I'm putting in. So this is the face of the people. So I think it's most important that you're here. Who cares, but less important that you do it behind the scenes. People that are here in the meetings or on Zoom, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So I would ask if potentially you could look into it and asking the solicitor can say, is there some kind of policy you should look at to have attendance or Zoom, particularly with a Zoom statement. I think the Zoom was put into place because of COVID, but now that COVID's not here, is it being taken advantage of? I'm not saying that it is, but it's hard to hear. It's hard to get people to speak on the microphone. So I'm just asking for more information so the residents can hear and see things happening. So if you would please take that into context and in the future with any kind of policies.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
It is 8:14. You missed the first pitch.
It's close to
Which way?
said a little bit.
All right. If there's nothing else, anyone on Zoom? Motion to
I'd like
adjourn.
to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.